And good evening and hello to everyone, wherever you may be tuning in. It may be morning, afternoon, or evening. It's 5 o'clock here in London. It's day 2 of the AI Accelerator, and we're really excited to welcome our incredible speaker from Schneider Electric, and it's Roberto here, joining us on the call from Italy.
Well, no, I'm actually in Chelmsford, not far from where you are. I'm in
I
UK.
see. I thought you would have a chance to go actually home, but okay.
Well,
So,
sooner,
yeah,
hopefully soon. Yeah,
yes, we're all waiting for the times to
yeah.
become a little bit more normal so that we can go back home to visit our families or just go on holidays. But so good to have you, Roberto, and I am absolutely looking forward to your talk. I have briefly been I've been looking at your presentation, and I know there is a lot you have to say about data, about humans, and about so many other things. So I'm really looking forward to that. So everyone, we have Roberto Maranca here from Schneider Electric here on our call. And you will have a chance to ask questions. If you have questions, do please ask them on YouTube Live, and we will ask Roberto all of your questions. Enjoy this talk.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure and a honor, and I'll try to share my screen now. Elena, if you confirm you can see it, so I'll just make sure that I talk to the slides. And right, you go. Can you see now? All right.
You can, yeah.
So a quick introduction about me. As you can hear, I'm not from around UK. I moved here 20 years ago, and I've been doing I'm probably way older than the average of you guys. But let's say, in my past, I've been an IT guy. And after a while, I decided I want to be in data. And after a few companies, I ended up in Schneider Electric, who's a company that is quite a big one, is global company, and is producing a lot of stuff that probably you have in your house that you don't see. So we are producing components for energy management. So from the small switch in your board to the big data centers or the big hospital power management. And for the ones that are in UK, the new stadiums of the Tottenham Hotspur was actually a Schneider installation. So we, as the tagline says, we keep the life on. Life is on. And our mantra from our CEO is that people should have a right to access to energy and digital. So digital is important, and data is what is behind digital. Data, people are saying sometimes data is the new oil. Actually, data is more than that. Data is the new nuclear fusion. It's just we are unlocking an enormous amount of energy and connected to all your energy in trying to solve the challenges you're looking at. That's an incredibly powerful proposition. But with all big power comes big responsibility. And that's because what I talk here about, and I'm going to talk a bit about my ideas of what's happening in the digital world, and also what's happening more in the business world. And then we'll go to close to you, close to what you're doing, and how you should think about the things you do, you're trying to solve your challenge in the greater environment of humanity. So what happens really that the people are excited about the future that technology brings to you, don't realize that sometimes that future for people that we relate to is actually transformed in fear, anxiety, alienation. People will think, what's going to happen to my job if you are actually replacing everything with a bot? And so we need really to understand that at the end of the day, humans will always be central to the digital world. Whatever you do, whatever we do, when we are creating an algorithm, are deriving an insight, we do it because we want to offer something to a human being. And the human being will make an emotional choice to decide whether to buy or not to buy this, unless Alexa one day will select a song because it likes it, or my fridge will be testing the electricity coming from two different providers and switch me on the this one because it likes it. So when the things are going to be so intelligent, they're going to make an emotional choice, then all bets are off, and it will be an incredibly different world to look at. But so far, let's stay on people. And you probably want to think about also why I'm talking about people in the context of business, because we need to understand that in a 21st century, what is really making a company great and successful is how this company is connecting people and data. Imagine that when I started working, and you were not, probably your parents didn't meet yet. Uh, I in 1995, to have the power that I can get today, just subscribing to Google Docs, it would have taken my company probably years of investments to get to the level of proficiency in IT. So the infrastructure, all this technology that is so almighty is actually pushing people in the foreground as the critical factor for success. So connecting data and people is important. But why is it difficult in most companies? And I might be telling you something you don't know yet, or some terminology they're not familiar. But in companies these days, we're talking a lot about silos. So people are talking, oh, in this company we do things in silos, so we are not efficient, we're not optimizing things, we're not doing things in a way that should be easier. But where you see silos, I see tribes, because in reality there aren't these cylindrical metal things sitting in a company, but are more people sitting together in a team, listening to their chiefs and sharing beliefs, sharing customs, sharing the habits, sharing their tradition, and most importantly, from a data point of view, what they share is a dialect. And whenever you have a dialect, you have different languages spoken in a company, that will have an effect on data, because we don't call the same things with the same names. So when we try to measure things, when we try to create a data set or analyze a data set, if those data sets are not homogeneous, they are not comparable, we'll always have a problem. And the problem is going to be, my friends, that data flows, data doesn't care. Data goes around the company, and sooner or later will end up in the hands of the customers, the regulators, and investors, and they will not care. They will just say, this data is not good enough. And so they will not care if it's going to be the finance team or the IT team having making polluted. You are going to have a problem. So in thinking about the world of data and thinking about the world of what you do or what you're trying to think about and becoming data scientist and working with this data thing and doing I believe that to take care of a world in which digital humanism is important, you need to expand the set of people that you want to have on a team. We need to start to think about not just how do I create an algorithm, but how I make that algorithm visualize in a way that doesn't create a wrong impression. How do I actually work in a way that once I create this insight, and this insight is creating a truth, that truth can be absorbed by people? How create a sociological, or even how do I think about the philosophy of what my company is doing? And that's not just from a company point of view, but also from a society point of view. So we need to be very wider, much wider in how we think of the skills that needs to be brought to the table. And funny enough, for you guys, for the guys that are looking at human sciences or sciences, and decide what I should do, should I go more on the human side, on the technical science? I think nowadays we are we are seeing these things intertwined. More and more these days, we're talking about the connection between human science and technical sciences as the only combination that will make us better as a humanity. So what do I do? So apart from thinking all these strange things, what do I do? Well, in my role of data excellence in Schneider, you can think about me as a sort of a data personal trainer. So people will come to me from a business side point of view and say, oh, I really want to improve my sales, or I really want to get to in a new market, or I want to do that. And I translate their strategy requirement, their ambition, I translate it into, you need to have a mindset, you need to have a certain regime, so you achieve results. So that's what I do. And the way I structure this is thinking about three pillars. We want to have in a business an aligned culture, because as I said, humans are central to this. So you want to have people that are thinking that not working on data, not creating the right data quality environment is wrong. And so you want to have the reward the right behaviors for data. So, and you want to make sure that you are transforming your environment. You get into an environment in which this data brings change, and we change the way we change. So we use every opportunity of change to make something better for data. And finally, you want to create value. And the value you create when you are connecting all of this in something that more and more people are talking about as the era of enterprise knowledge management. And this is really the future. This is really the way companies are starting to think about what they need to do. So it's not enough that I analyze a series of temperature somewhere in my shop floor and and understand whether that temperature is going in the right direction and is in the wrong direction. No, I want to connect the temperature with the number of people in the room. I want to have an understanding of what processes are happening at that time. I want to have a sensor that are telling me whether the activity that is happening is according to what I want. And on top of that, I want to put my models in terms of revenue models, in terms of profit models, and operation models. So you start to see yourself as a company as and you will probably find, I don't know if you heard this terminology, but digital twin is basically a representation of what you do using all your data and all your modelization. So you move away from just doing the little algorithm and you expand that to an algorithm that is actually interpreting is making the company look like a brain that is answering questions based on models that are physical models. If this is too far-fetched, believe me, this was feeling far-fetched to me as well a few years ago. But if you look further in the future, it's really that's where the companies and probably humanity needs to go to really solve the big problems. You can't just look at the little algorithm. You need to look at the entirety of the knowledge that you need to solve a problem. Are there any question, Elena? I'm actually doing fine with time. I should be done in another 10 minutes.
Perfect. No, none yet, but I am.
Okay. Are you? So am I coming across clear? I mean, can you hear me all right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Good. So, but in doing that, you need to be careful because bad data is out there. And if you ever been trying to solve a challenge or to solve a problem, you will immediately find yourself in front of the fact that, oh, I don't have all the data I need. Oh, I don't have all the data in the way I need. Oh, I don't even have the data that I needed in terms of freshness. I want this to be yesterday's data. The only thing I get is 6 months ago data. Bad data is the ball chained to your ankle when you're trying to transform digitally a company, because you will do you will set up your AI, you will do everything you can to choose the feature and doing all the fantastic curation and creating a perfect being. But that perfect being, once you give it to the people that have to actually work with it, they will tell you data is not good enough. I can't use this. So there is a debt of data, and there's a debt that has been accumulating in companies in the world because of the neglect of data. And that's what you need to think about when you are setting a challenge. Don't forget that you will need to negotiate with bad data. And as practitioners, now more from let's say from a society point of view, I explain you the what I do, and I explain you the value that I think data has got for society, and I hope you understand and you agree that there is a huge opportunity here. And actually, maybe AI has come at the right moment in time for humanity to save us. But as practitioners, we are at a junction. On one side, you have a utopia. You have the fantastic place that us data experts, heroes of the humanity, will be able to create jobs and opportunity, and data science is going to use to create transparency and understanding. That's when if things are going to go right. But we are still risking the dystopia side. So that's the side where we will be pointed as people that killed free will from humanity, because our algorithms will basically take away the possibility for people to choice, because we're going to have a choice. We will destroy jobs, and data science is going to be a weapon. And you know what's the first weaponization of data? It's called fake news. Fake news is data weaponized, make as a weapon. So, and don't forget, in all of this, just to give you a sense of what is the attention on all of us, don't forget that the European Fundamental Charter of Human Rights put data privacy as Article 8. So, and Article 8 comes before Article 9, which I believe is freedom of speech, and Article 10, which I believe is freedom of religion. So we are touching things that are quite sensitive for humanity. So again, with great power comes great responsibility. And we know that in the future of digital company, the only way you can grow is to fuel the trust that people are in you, having you. So there's going to be, as people working in a company, we will be more and more thinking, well, this is feasible and actually is legal, but I don't know if it's ethical. So you will need to make a decision whether because you can do it, it should doesn't mean you should. And then I'm playing with words here because there is an envelope of trust when truth is simply put and is clear as actually something you can absorb and is done in a transparent way. So transparency, simplicity, and truth is what is going to give people the confidence that they are actually trusting you, and then they're going to come for more business to work with you. So it's a matter of alignment. So given that we are really, really managing very, very tricky and very, very important thing, I'll ask you to, with me, to take this oath. There's an oath that I work with Mary Wallace in IBM, and there's an oath that a few of my friends have been taking because as a category of data practitioners, we are the only practitioner and the only category that probably is not having a clarified and assumed code of conduct. So I'll ask you to say that I solemnly pledge to practice my profession with conscience and dignity, to respect the privacy of the people whose data is confided in me. I hope you are repeating after me. To maintain the utmost respect for the individuals whose data I am analyzing, to be transparent, open, and honest about the type of analysis I'm applying to the data, to never, never, never use my insight to violate human rights and civil liberties, even under threat. So if you swore with me, you are now a true data practitioner. And as a true data practitioner, the last thing I want to leave you with is this sentence from this guy. He's an old guy. He was a philosopher. You see, if you're a philosopher, you can live long because this guy died when he was 103. And he said a very important thing is he's a winner of a Nobel Prize. He said, if you torture data, it will confess to anything. So be careful when you torture the data, and be good. And I hope your challenges are bring a lot of good to humanity. I'm done.
Wow, this is amazing. Roberto, thank you so much for this. So we do have, a lot of young people tuning in right now, and there will be some watching your talk afterwards because we have some teams from America. This was just brilliant. And the question I have for you is, we do have a few questions in here, but the first question I wanted to ask you, and that is really relevant to the program. So tomorrow is probably the day when they will be looking for data sets, and they will be exploring the entire concept of what is data, where can I find clean, good quality data. What would you advise, what would you recommend, because we've got quite a number of challenges we're tackling. Many teams are tackling mental health, so that's kind of sensitive data as well, private data potentially. Then there are teams that are actually focusing on the question of fake news as well. So
good.
This is what you've just
the
been
anti-weapon. Yes, good.
Yeah, so they are actually taking fake news, and particularly in light of right now what is happening, and there is a lot of information that's coming out about COVID, which is not true, fake, and they are trying to find a way to detect it. So it's really relevant what you've just been talking, but they want to know, where can we find good quality data? And then I will read out some of the other questions they have.
Right. So people have to understand, first thing is quality is in the eye of the consumer. right? That's the important. The first thing you need to understand, that quality is not an absolute concept; is a relative concept. Because I'll give you the example of water, right? If I analyze water that comes out of my tap, it's got 40 milligrams of calcium per liter, and that's perfectly good for human consumption. But if I use that water in an industrial process, that will break my machines. So quality is really is there's to be seen with the eyes of what you want to do with that. So the question is, where do I find data quality? Good data quality is actually a wrong question. Is the question should be, how do I find quality that is good enough for what I need to do? So you really need to understand what you want to do with data to project that onto your data and understand whether your data is fit for purpose or not. And to do that, you really need to have the consumer in mind. Now, the consumer can be the person that told you the challenge, should be stressed by you and say, what exactly we want to do with that? Or you need to have a intimate understanding of the problem so you can set your standards and your tolerances, because that's the only way that you get to a point in which you say, okay, I can actually trust this.
Brilliant. And so we do have a team that's actually developing this product to detect fake news. And they're asking you, following on, okay, from the last quotation, how much of the fake news we see every day is simply a manipulation of statistics? And how can we ensure that statistics are used to accurately represent the news?
Oh my God, I would like to have you in my team. That's no, that's you basically you have there the entirety of the problem of data science, right? You've been talking about bias, backtesting, and real inference. So yeah, it's an incredibly complex question to answer, but I guess that the validation and control is the only things you can put on the side to be sure enough that what you're saying is the right thing. Because at the end of the day, data is representing reality, right? So somewhere, somehow, there is a real thing that is actually true. And although might be true in an interpretation, might true in a you see, we get philosophically involved immediately in this, and so it's brilliant. So that's, I really believe that the science, technical science and human science are really connected here, because what we are trying to solve here is not technology anymore. We are trying to solve humanity. And that's where the brilliance of this comes for me. And I'm having goosebumps when I talk about that, because my mom is a philosopher. My mom has been teaching philosophy for 25 years. So when I was in IT, we couldn't really speak about my job, but now we're having incredibly interesting conversations. So back to your question, I don't think there is only one answer, but you need to, of course, the technical answer is only a limited answer. You need to have a lot of validation and controls, and you need to really be on top of what is going to be the external variation on external element, and we can add bias and it can add things. You will be able to catch them out, but you need to really have your control in mind to be sure that what you're looking at is good enough. And again, it's back to quality.
This is fantastic.
I don't know if I'm able to answer that, but I mean, it's I would like to spend half an hour on that, but we don't have half an hour.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have much time, because we've got Renee already on this call, and I'm so looking forward to kind of continuing on that thread on the ethics and data and biases. But Roberta, I'm really grateful you've joined us. I would love to invite you just for at least one day, just as a mentor to this team that's out there asking lots of questions about fake news. I really do think, they would benefit from spending an extra hour with you, or maybe we could set up a separate call with you.
I have no problem to do that. If you catch me before, hopefully I go on vacation, would be better.
We will catch you today. Don't worry, Roberto, you will get an email from me today, and I will.
All right, I know that someone has already come through my inbox, I think.
I will email you. I will connect you with those students. They are university students from Leeds Robotics, department, and one from Imperial and another one from Warwick. This is our more sort of the elderly students, and they are tackling what they're really passionate
Well, when you
about.
say the elderly, they could still be my daughters and sons, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. But yeah, but they're very curious about this topic, and I would love to connect
Okay.
you by email if that's okay. But thank
Absolutely, I'm at your disposal, and it was a pleasure to be here. I hope that what I said in a rambling way was making sense. So, but
absolutely.
okay,
Thank you so
thank
much,
you,
Roberta. Thank
thank you
you.
very much, and
See you
good luck
soon.
with the rest. Bye,
Thank you. Thank you.
bye.
Bye. Okay, so we have got another very, very exciting speaker, and I am so happy to have Renee on this call. Renee, do you please unmute yourself and say hi to us?
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Renee.
How
So
are you?
good to have you. I am so happy. I'm even happier now because you've literally made my dream come true. I've been following your work for so long, and obviously, you know, we've already done some work with Black in AI community, and I know you are passionate and pioneering, and I have seen so much of everything you've been writing about, you know, racial biases, about biases in general, and I'm just pleased that you have found, you know, 20 minutes for us today just to talk to us about what you're working on, and I'm really delighted. So everyone, this is Renee Cummings, and she is a criminologist and international criminal justice consultant who also specializes in AI, ethical AI, bias in AI, diversity and inclusion in AI, algorithmic authenticity and accountability, data integrity and equity, AI for social good and social justice in AI policy and governance. I've said it all. These are my favorite words. You literally are my, you know, most favorite person to have on this, in this accelerator during these talks. And obviously, we select all our speakers, but I was just so passionate about everything you do that I was just overwhelmed when you said yes. I have got the time, so it's over to you. Please do tell us about your work, and I'm just looking forward to hearing what it will all be about.
Thank you so much. Of course, it's certainly an honor and a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I am a criminologist, and it is my work in criminology that got me into AI and AI ethics. So is everyone hearing me well?
Yes, we can hear you, and this is streamed onto YouTube, so the questions will be on YouTube. Thank you, Renee.
Fantastic. Now that I know everyone is listening. So yes, so what was happening in AI a few years ago is that we were realizing in the criminal justice system that we were using these risk assessment tools built on algorithms called algorithmic decision systems. And these algorithmic decision systems were behaving badly in the sense that they were overestimating individual risk, and they were making predictions that were inaccurate. So the algorithms were what we would describe as zombie algorithms and opaque algorithms. And this became very frightening because you would imagine in the criminal justice system, you want to get a decision right because a decision could be a matter of life or freedom. And not I'm saying life in prison or freedom to be outside and able to interact and to be there with your family. So we were seeing these decisions. We were seeing some very problematic decisions, particularly as well with juveniles. And we realized that somehow these algorithms were operating in a way that was replicating old biases, discrimination, systemic racism, and many of those old patterns in society that we really did not want to see in the decision-making in the criminal justice system because it's such a high stakes area or environment. So there was a big expose, I think, in 2016 by ProPublica, and they looked at the fact that Black and brown people were getting sentences that varied quite peculiarly from other races. And I think that led me into AI because I started to think, what's going wrong here? What's happening in these algorithms? Why aren't we looking at these algorithms more deeply and more intensely to see the kinds of challenges that we were faced with? And the more that I started to speak about what was happening at the intersection of AI and criminal justice, the more that I actually fell in love with AI. So I do have a deep passion and love for the potential of AI, its pervasiveness, its power, its ability to operate with speed and at scale, and the promise that AI has to do all these extraordinary things, to change the world, to impact humanity, to really imagine and reimagine the kind of world that we want. But also when we're using an algorithm, when we're using that something that is designed by another human, we've also got to appreciate that there could be great peril. There could be some danger if left unchecked. So this is why a lot of people call me a data activist, because I speak about data vigilance and data consciousness. And what I speak about is the fact that we've got to understand that we need an ethical approach to AI. And an ethical approach to AI would pretty much be the fact that we've got to be conscious of things like privacy, accountability, safety and security, transparency and explainability, fairness and non-discrimination, having a human-centered approach to design, having a professional responsibility to the ways in which we design, and ensuring as data scientists and as developers and as creative thinkers within the realm of AI technology. I'm gonna have to put my air conditioner on. I hope it's not too noisy. If it's too noisy, just let me know. We were realizing that we needed to have more of an ethical approach to this technology. And we were also realizing that the lack of diversity, the lack of inclusivity, the lack of equity within the realm of AI was really undermining AI. And really, it was undermining AI in a way that we were denying a more creative mix of talent coming into the AI space. So one of the things that I got really passionate about is really bringing a multidisciplinary approach to AI. And I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Before I became a criminologist, I was a journalist. And then I worked a lot in the entertainment industry, working in music, working in the early days of music videos in New York City, and working with some of the talent who would produce music like R&B, hip hop, reggae music, soca and calypso music. So working in entertainment. And then I worked at FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, because I do have this love for fashion and that energy of fashion as it pertains to style and color and all those beautiful things when it comes to fashion textures as well. And then I was motivated and moved from a personal experience. When I was a teenager, a very close friend of mine was actually addicted to crack cocaine. And he died before the age of 21. And I was really deeply troubled by the fact that he did not get the opportunity because of the lack of really effective rehabilitation intervention. And I really found myself moving in that direction. So I did a master's degree in counseling psychology, and my focus was on substance abuse therapy and working with persons in particular who were incarcerated because of substances. And that is where I first found myself thinking about criminology, because as a substance abuse therapist in the court system in New York City, I realized that most of my clients also had a criminal record. And that's how I really got into criminology. I came from a place of restorative justice and a place of social justice. And it's one of the reasons that I think I have been able to combine artificial intelligence and social justice in a very unique way. And that is where my passion really lies. So in my work in AI, what I do is I do the business side of AI as well. So I speak to businesses and I speak to organizations and companies and executives about implementing AI within the organization and building what I call an ethical organizational culture for AI. And what I do there is to ensure that the designers, everyone who's around the design table, has an appreciation and a really deep understanding of how things like bias and discrimination and systemic racism can impact the design of a product and can really impact not only the design, but how it's developed and how it's deployed and how it's received by a community. And when I speak about bias, I'm not only speaking about race or systemic racism, I'm speaking about gender, sexuality, disability, mobility, access. All of these things impact the way in which we design a technology and the way in which a technology is used and received by individuals in a society. But then I also do the social justice side of AI. And that is why I'm really so impassioned about ethical AI. And ethical AI really has to grab a hold, in particular right now, of the direction in which it's going. Because we can't say we're designing ethical technology and we're excluding different communities from the design process. So one of the things that I want to encourage people to think is to think in a very multidisciplinary way. You don't have to be an AI ethicist, or you don't have to be a data scientist to get involved in AI. What AI needs right now would be diverse intelligences. What AI needs right now would be a multidisciplinary perspective to design. Because technology, as you will know, has an extraordinary impact. And that impact could be positive, or that impact could be negative on society. Every aspect of the life cycle when it comes to technological design impacts society, communities, the environment in a very unique way. Even the psychology of the individual. Pre-social media, we didn't have many of the existing or pre-existing psychological or mental illness challenges that we are seeing right now with that technology. Pre-social media, if your friends did something or had a party or went to an event and they didn't tell you, you didn't know until you probably met them again and they recounted what they did. Now we can see in real time what they're doing because they're posting on Snapchat, on Instagram, they're tweeting, they're putting it up on Facebook. So what I'm showing you is that technology has extraordinary impact on our well-being as a society. And that well-being could be from mental health to physical health, to environmental health, to social health. So what technology needs and what AI needs now in particular would be that multidisciplinary approach. So you can want to be an educator, you can want to be a social worker, you may want to be a doctor, you may want to be an accountant, you may want to be a fashion designer, you may want to be just about anything, an entrepreneur, designing organic products. But you have this extraordinary piece of technology that you are now able to use to really scale up your business, to really do something extraordinary and something so imaginative with your business that you can really not only make a name for yourself, not only be able to support yourself financially, but you could really make a difference in the world. And I'm not being cliched, because you can make a difference. But in that making of a difference with AI, it is important that you are data vigilant. And when I say data vigilant, what I mean is this. You've got to understand if you're using technology to design a system or deploy a system or to really enhance or improve any kind of product that you're using, you've got to appreciate the impact this technology can have, the negative impacts. And you've got to really ensure what you're doing pays attention to what we call due diligence. And due diligence is about fairness and understanding that people have access to understanding the technology, to understanding that this technology has been designed in an accountable and a transparent way. And then there's something called duty of care. And you've got to ensure that what you're using this technology to do is to do good. Now, nobody is saying that in doing good, you may have some challenge, you may be encountering some challenges. What I'm saying is that you want to ensure that there's what we call that duty of care. That duty of care is to ensure that what you're doing, you're taking care of the approaches, you're taking care of communities, you're being careful and cautious that you're not creating any kinds of unnecessary trauma or difficulties or harm in a particular community. The other thing that you want to think about is being data conscious. And being data conscious means that you've got to have an appreciation, historical appreciation of technology and about change and about how communities are impacted, or how communities are marginalized because of technology, or how some communities could become victimized because of technology or feel alienated. So now we come back to criminal justice. And what we're seeing in criminal justice is that the application of AI could be a really powerful tool when it comes to understanding crime trends or crime patterns and crime anomalies, things that don't look right. We've also seen the very positive use of AI when it comes to crime forecasting, when it comes to crime prevention, when it comes to DNA analysis, when it comes to fingerprint analysis or any kind of forensics, when it comes to forensic pathology. We're seeing this technology making extraordinary strides in those areas. But when it comes to the application within the realm of justice, we're seeing that predictive policing is very racist. We're seeing that using analytics, using data that's historically biased or historically discriminates against particular groups, and using that in things like policing, security, surveillance, can have really serious repercussions for individuals, for their rights, their civil liberties, their human rights. We're seeing that people who are saying that they could use technology like facial recognition or emotion recognition to see whether or not someone is criminal or whether or not someone has the propensity or the proclivity to perpetrate a crime. Those things are negative. Those things are encouraging certain stereotypes. Those things are alienating and victimizing, marginalizing, and have the ability to harm communities. So that's why I'm saying we've got to have an ethical approach. And this is where I'm going to just wind it down. So an ethical approach says that we know technology is not perfect. We know that humans are designing technology, so it's not going to be 100% right. But an ethical approach says that I'm conscious, I'm cautious, I'm vigilant. I understand the challenges that we face as a society, and I understand how those challenges, the biases, discrimination, can find their way into the data sets or the data point that I'm using. And I have that level of understanding and consciousness to know that I've got to detect these biases, I've got to mitigate these biases, and I've got to manage the process to ensure during the life cycle, that design, development, and deployment phase, that I'm on it, that I'm on the technology, and that I'm checking, I'm doing those checks and balances, and I'm really coming up with alternatives to ensure that everything we do, we are doing it to the best of our ability. We're doing it in a responsible way. We're ensuring that the AI that we create is trustworthy, and we are ensuring that what we do is really going to future-proof society, is really going to build that better tomorrow today. And it really means that you've got to always understand that we've got to have diversity at the table. We've got to mix it up. We've got to have those diverse intelligences. We've got to ensure that technological design is inclusive, that it does not alienate, that it does not exclude. And we've got to ensure that there is equity and there is buy-in. And how do we do that? We do that by ensuring when it comes to the education around AI, and when we are looking at that next generation of AI, and I think that's the generation that I'm speaking to right now, that you understand the responsibility that you have, that you understand the creative energy that you possess, that you understand that you can use this technology to create the world that we want, the world that we need. And you're not going to use new technology to create old divisions. And I just want to say to you, as you move forward in your career, understand that you have the potential for what is extraordinary, and use this technology to develop extraordinary opportunities for everyone in society. Thank you.
Wow, this was amazing. And truly, this was exactly what I was hoping to hear, because it's only day 2. They are diving into human-centered design. They're looking into problems. We have experts in our Discord channel, from NHS, looking into mental health, anxieties, fake news, education. There are so many incredible challenges that have been offered, and they are looking into exploring, speaking to experts, speaking to the users. So human-centered design is very much embedded into our process. And what you have said was just so important to hear right now, because it's just so important that ethics is something they do consider. We do have a few ethics mentors who would be looking into the algorithm or speaking to the teams and asking them some really tough questions. But I'm so grateful that you're here with us speaking about this. So I am inviting our young AI enthusiasts to ask questions. So I'm waiting for some questions to come. And in the meantime, I just want to ask you, what can they do to mitigate, biases? Because they're looking into data sets right now. Today, tomorrow is when they will be looking at data sets. What should they do to ensure that the data set is representative of the people they're designing it for? How can they ensure there are less biases? What steps should they take?
I think that you've got to ask questions, and you've got to ask yourself, who collected this data? What's the context in which this data was collected? What were they trying to use this data to do? When they collected that data, how representative were they? How much did they know about the particular community? What was the depth of the understanding about that community? Because when you look into a community, you oftentimes look into that community with a spyglass that's built with your pre-existing biases. And we all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all have preferences, but we've got to learn to check that. And we've got to learn to look at the history of the data, look at the context in which it was collected, look at how it's been used in the past, and just ask yourself, how could I use this more effectively? What do I have to mitigate against? What am I going to take and what am I going to discard with this data? And is there a way technologically or another way that I could improve this data set to build whatever is the system that I want to build? But you've got to have that understanding. It's like being an investigator, I'm a criminologist, and one of the things that I do is interrogate. The way we interrogate someone when it comes to a crime, it's the same way you've got to interrogate an algorithm and a data set. Don't let it slip by. You've got to corner it. You've got to, really look into it, because that's the only way you're going to get the best out of that data set. And that's the only way you're going to be able to design something that says that I've taken an ethical approach to this design.
Brilliant. No, this is fantastic. And I have a question here, and this is about regulation. So should we be regulating technology? Wouldn't it stifle innovation? How do we ensure, we don't go overboard, but at the same time, we don't, let another Cambridge Analytica happen? So what can we do? And how do we make those people accountable? Because at the moment, we're seeing a lot of people are really getting away with murder, quite frankly. So what do we do to really mitigate this? And is there any regulation out there? Or are we moving in that direction right now? What would you say to that?
So there's a lot of regulation out there. There's European regulation, there's American regulation. But the thing that you've got to understand with technology is always light years ahead of the law. The law is playing catch up. And that's one of the ways, or one of the many reasons why big tech create all of these loopholes. The other thing that I want you to think about the law when it comes to technology, sometimes when we want to access an app, or sometimes when we want to access a technological service, we just click right through saying, I accept, and we've read absolutely nothing. And right there in that process, we may have signed away our rights to privacy when it comes to the use of our data. So we've got to be more vigilant. The other thing that you want to think about is that technology and the law, it's not a trade-off between innovation and ethics. You can have ethical innovation. When it comes to accountability, I think because AI and tech, as old as it may seem, is still very new for a lot of people, that many individuals are not there yet. So this is why public awareness, public education, public engagement, stakeholder engagement in the design of a tool or a system or a product is so very important. And this is why we say we need to have that diversity, equity, and inclusion in the AI space, because when we do that, it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be a complete system, but it's a system that makes you question. It's a system that creates checks and balances. And this is why we say explainability. You've got to be able to explain, particularly as we've seen in the criminal justice system, why did the AI come up with a decision that Renee should get 15 years and X should get 5? And I think what the criminal justice system is showing us, and many individuals in the criminal justice are showing us, is that within the law, we have the right to face our accusers. Within tech, we have the right to interrogate. We should have the right to interrogate an algorithm. It brings in questions about intellectual property and proprietary rights and trade secrets, because an algorithm is a trade secret. But I think this is where we talk about due process and the right to justice. And this is where you've got to find the right balance. When it comes to some of the big mistakes that we have seen, or the atrocities that we've seen when it comes to AI, it is because that lack of accountability and that lack of transparency, and the fact that the population was just not there yet. And things are happening that you're not understanding. So this is why I try to educate, I try to demystify data, and I try to let people know that science and math, the foundations of AI and algorithms, are not as neutral and as objective as we would think they are. And if it's man-made and if it's man-created, it will have societal issues. So you've got to be data conscious, you've got to be vigilant, and you've got to be an activist in your own right to ensure that what you're doing is right for the greatest percentage of people in society.
Fantastic. No, this is brilliant, and I'm really grateful you have offered us already so much advice. So it's, as I said, day 2. There will be another 8 days. I have no idea what will happen by the end of the 8th day, but they are going to be thinking about ethics. They really are forced to consider what might go wrong. In fact, this is one of the judging criteria. The judges will be looking into, what can go wrong and how are you going to mitigate this. Top 3 tips that you could offer to these teenagers. There are 40 of them. They're all very eager. They will be exploring lots of different tools. They will be looking into data science, AI. So what can you leave us with, the top 3 tips that they could perhaps implement, from today?
You want me to leave them? I didn't hear it. 3 tips.
That they could integrate, or maybe some advice that they could integrate as they are developing their products. What would be the 3 most essential things that they could really consider as they are looking into the technologies, so that they perhaps, less likely to get it wrong, hopefully by the end of the 8th day?
Always remember that a piece of technology that you design is your legacy. And that technology lives on, and it continues to live on. And ask yourself, what is the legacy that I want to leave in this piece of technology? So think of it as a legacy. The other thing that you want to understand is future-proofing. You've got to future-proof. You've got to create that better tomorrow today. So in everything you do, think about the impact this technology will have on future societies. And think about if someone was to get that technology, or that technology was to get in the wrong hands. Always think about that. And the other thing that I would say is think about yourself. Think about the things that you like. Think about the things that make you feel good. And think about how you will feel, or how you feel when you are excluded. And whatever you feel when you're excluded, or whenever you feel when you're alienated, whatever that emotion is, ensure that when you design your technology, that technology does not allow anyone to feel that way.
Fantastic. And I know we're only literally a minute away from when you need to jump off to another call. So I am really grateful, Renee. We will end here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really grateful. We will share this with everyone else who was not able to join us. That was fantastic advice, and just grateful. And I'll stay in touch and let you know what happens at the end of the 8th day.
To all the beautiful teenagers who are starting their AI journey. And I'm going to look forward to all the fantastic things they're going to produce. And just be honest to yourself and stay creative, and don't be too hard on yourself. Just love yourself, okay? Take care.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Renee.
Sure.
All right. That was amazing. I just love what Renee does. And we do have our 3rd speaker today. somebody we just really onboarded last night, because I just really wanted to bring in somebody who will motivate you. And okay, this was my son bursting in. It had to happen today.
So I busted in with my head.
He had to interrupt my stream. So Jayashri, I am going to ask you to introduce yourself, and let's just start with your talk whilst I deal with my son. Thank you,
How
Jayashri.
wonderful is this, and how very appropriate, Elena, because I work with children, I work with young adults, and I work with the child and everybody. So, you know, it's so appropriate to have you with us. Very, very, very happy, Elena, to be on board. Thanks, a very, very special thanks to you and Ganesh. How do I introduce myself? Now your son is giving me a trigger. Well, I am a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a mom for 2 girls. I'm also a grandmom. And above all this, I'm a life coach too, right? Donning different roles, taking on different responsibilities, yet finding a common thread among them all has been what I've been striving throughout my life. And interestingly, while doing this, what I've realized is they're not very, very different roles. There seems to be a very, very common thread between these. And it seems to be triggering or enhancing 3 aspects in you. All that you have to do is ask me for it. Well, the clue is there. It's ask. Your attitude, skill, and knowledge. These are the 3 things that keep getting enhanced. Now, even as I start off, I would like to ask you a question. I did tell you about the various roles that I don, but the first question that comes to my mind is, have you watched the movie Titanic, or have you heard about the shipwreck? I'm sure you have. Well, what do you think actually caused the ship to wreck? What actually caused Titanic to sink? I'm sure the first answer that came to your mind is a glacier, right? So what's about this glacier? Well, there is a part of it that meets our eye, which is on the surface of the water. There's a larger part of it, which is absolutely under the water, and we cannot even have a look at it. It's so seamless. It just disappears. It's not there for us to see. It's so intangible. Well, that is what caused the ship to go wreck, right? So one of the major learnings that I've had is the skill and the knowledge enhancement that is happening to us. They are tangible, they're evident. So Elena and I, when we just started off this conversation yesterday, the first thing that she told me was, yes, we seem to be doing a lot of knowledge and skill aspect, but attitude, I don't think we are really working on that much, because it's so intangible and there's so much more to do in that particular sphere. So why don't we really discuss that? Well, so that is going to be our endeavor today. So we need to take cognizance of this fact of what lies under the surface, not just carried away by what's happening on the surface. So Elena and I decided that we will share a few tools, techniques that actually helped me as an entrepreneur. And I also helped me work on the various aspects, and derive the various challenges that I'm seeing all across, and derive inspiration from the challenges and turn them into opportunities. So today I'm going to use a very simple strategy. I'm going to highlight the efficacy of a few tools that I kept using and techniques and my own experience of using these tools, and work on that as a sample. So this is going to be your sample today, hoping that this will inspire you, and it'll also help you gain insights, and it'll also pave way for innovation. The triple I is what we are going to be working on today for this 1 hour. Just be with me and participate. I look at this as a unique opportunity for you to look at the right kind of support that will help you arrive at this massive responsibility that you have taken up, innovating in the field of artificial intelligence. And if I remember the keynote speaker, Jitendra, speaking yesterday, he said you need to use this T approach, right? You need to go really broad and then you need to go really deep in one particular aspect so that you can actually achieve what you really want to achieve. So I think this is a fantastic endeavor to introduce you to a wide spectrum of people, and Alina is just doing that fantastic. Alina, thank you for bringing me on board again. Let's see if any of my findings inspire you enough to work on, all for the cause of living well, just being with people while learning. And being with people like you inspires me, and I am inspired in order to inspire others, and that's the motto I work on. I do life skill training programs with schools, colleges, corporates, individuals, interest groups. I started my career as a teacher and then moved on to be the cultural ambassador, represented India and Japan, worked with educational institutions there and facilitators, worked with educators across India, trained many young minds to share and collaborate for the cause of learning. And I came across multiple challenges when I was doing this, because we had to be present physically everywhere. That was the first and foremost challenge that I tried to overcome. And these challenges that would touch me to the core of my heart. And every time I tried and resolved one challenge, it would make me feel so happy, but at the same time, make me feel so dissatisfied that I had so much to work on. And that's when I realized that I need to take the assistance of mentors from various fields and arrive at something tangible and feasible, given the restraint of time, space, resources. While doing this, I arrived at the mission and the vision of my life. So one of the key factors I observe when I work with youngsters is they're grappling with a lot of things. There is an information explosion happening all around. And therefore, at the click of a finger, they have access to a lot of information. And they feel they are empowered enough and want to move on in different directions. And then comes a stage when they're completely confused and they are so lost. Well, that's when I realized that it is so important for us to sit down, introspect, use very effective tools, and arrive at the purpose of our life. So we need to really ask ourselves 4 very, very simple questions, even when we begin. What do I love? What am I good at doing? What is it that the society really wants from me? And what do you think I can get paid for? Because if I do not have these resources, I can't continue in the process. Seemingly simple questions, but when I put the participants through these questions, there are innumerable number of blocks. Even as they use Excel sheets and, kind of provide the data for all this, they still can't figure out what it is that they want to do. That's when they need a personal touch. They need a mentor to, handhold them, guide them, help them connect the various dots that seem to be emerging from this plethora of desires that they have. Now, so this is a starting point. But many of them have come back saying that we've never even introspected along these lines ever before. Now that surprises me many a time. And I say, what is it that we are doing in the educational spectrum where we're not really giving our students enough time to introspect and ask these elementary questions and see, if they are able to kind of understand themselves a lot better. Let me share with you a small incident. Now, what is it that actually drove me to do what I am doing? So through my academy, when I kind of work with all these youngsters, what is it that drives me? And I always feel it's an act of compassion that drives me. But let's understand the word compassion itself. And I think this is a very important term for all of us to understand when we embark on massive projects with such a plethora of people, supporting us. So here was this little psychiatrist, a young psychiatrist, who embarked upon an internship. He wanted to go and do an internship in a hospital. And he was allowed to observe a lot of the patients, many of the patients there. And he chanced upon a guy who was crying all day through. Now, he was very disturbed because he could feel the pain of this young guy. And he said, this is the case I want to take up. But when he went to his seniors, asking them the very same question, the first thing they told him is, well, we worked very hard on this case, and I don't think this is a case you need to take up during your internship. So why don't you think of some other cases? And they made other suggestions for him and just left the floor open for him. But definitely, he couldn't take on that particular case he desired to. Well, he came back, and on his way back home, he's completely disturbed, and he meets another monk. And he goes there and he asks the monk, okay, I'm very disturbed and I want to work on this specific case because it hurts me so much to see him in so much pain. It pains me. So the monk simply said, keep the pain, retain the pain, he said, and continue to feel the pain, he said. Now this man was totally surprised. He said, what do you mean, feel the pain? I mean, how can I live with this pain? The monk went on to explain that you might not work on this specific case, but the pain will surely nudge you to look for solutions. And the solutions that you find are going to help many more, not just that one specific case. So you see, we start there. It is an act of compassion and a pain that actually drives us or inspires us. Yesterday, when I was listening to all the speakers, each one of them from a very different field, and each one of them was coming up with things that rattled them. Some were giving you very strong data points. Some were just nudging your consciousness. There were a few others who were just making it come along to your awareness. Some of them were just talking about the present scenario and how it is affecting them. But at every single step, you will notice that it is one pain that they were speaking about. But interestingly, the same pain can actually immobilize us. It can stop us from acting. It can move us to inaction because you don't know how to deal with this, where to start, and how to go forward. But trust me, if the pain is genuine and if it's truly touched you, you will be stirred to action. You will start seeking the support that you require. So the very first I that I wanted to bring to your notice is we are usually inspired by the compassion that we feel, the pain that we feel. So I genuinely appreciate this platform where everyone is coming from different walks of life and talking about the challenges that they're facing. And we all know that the very same challenge becomes an opportunity for somebody who's ready to work on it, right? Who's not looking at it as a problem, not becoming problem-centric, but becoming more and more solution-centric. So on that note, let me see if the examples that I'm going to share now, the samples of my work and what actually stirred me into action, inspires you to think deeper and perhaps even come up with an AI solution, because you will see there is a lot that is required in this field and for the field of education. So are you ready to dive deeper? Okay, so here is another small sample for you. So the same thing was happening to me. I was moving around the country working, and I told you that every time I worked on a particular problem, it would make me feel happy, but at the same time, completely dissatisfied that there are so many more that I need to work on. I would always feel, oh my God, we need so much human resource. I would always feel that there is no competition. There is a dearth here. And today I am truly dreaming about AI, taking on and donning that role in a bigger way in order to make many of these ideas scalable. So let's just go forward and see how I worked on at least getting some semblance of normality to my action, moving out of this zone of frustration, which I'm sure anybody who embarks on a project does face. because I am assuming that many of us who are already thinking about which particular aspect I need to work on is already thinking about, oh my God, there's so much for me to work on. Right. So I used a tool, the Minto pyramid, it's called the SCQA. It's like, look at the situation and, work on it, look deeper, arrive at a challenge that's actually creating this situation. Then ask yourself a question on, how you can resolve this particular issue, and then come up with a solution as an answer for the same. So today, and this is one thing that I keep playing games most of the time, and there are card games that I play. So here I have, I can't be playing a game with you today, maybe sometime later, but I am just going to say, this is what I do. I keep creating cards for myself. I keep asking these questions, and then I keep fanning myself with this, because this is what is going to give me some semblance of normality. Right. So here is the first situation that I came across, which nudged me very deeply. And while I took the help of various mentors to help me arrive at some tangible things to work on, there were 8 challenges that I decided to take up and design my programs to resolve these 8 challenges. So the first one, and it's going to ring a beautiful bell with all of us here, today, many young and old are confused. They're disgruntled and unhappy about the career choices that they have made or have been forced to make because they're missing direction. Have you come across yourself feeling that way? Have you come across other peers feeling the same way? Most definitely we have. And what is the challenge? Why is it happening? Why is it that they are making the choices and still, so disgruntled? Why is it that they are shifting responsibility and blaming somebody for having forced them to take on that particular stream? This happens across countries, right? So the challenge is, that's because in the educational system, many lack the exposure, experiences, and opportunities to meet new people and places aligning with their interest. So deep down, they know what they are good at, what they enjoy doing, what they can do, what they love, but they're not really meeting enough people in real life who can actually guide them and mentor them and steer them into this kind of action. And so comes the question then, the question that I must ask myself as an educationist, right? Do we have systems in place that consistently bring together minds to align our interests to the needs of others? Now, if you look at, see how the cosmos even construed to make this meeting happen. Elena just said, it was a chance meeting that happened and I'm on board already. And I call it, I call it a divine ordinance, because look at what has happened. This is exactly what we do at IBM too. We equip learners with the necessary attitude, skill, knowledge in their scope of interest, and coupled with travel elements or moving around. Why? In order to connect with people. Now, because of the COVID scenario, it's not even possible to travel. Then how do we do it? We just simply need to use platforms of this nature in order to connect and get the youngsters to connect with people across fields. And I think it's phenomenal. In a week's time, in about 10 days' time, if you are going to meet this many people and everybody else who's watching these live sessions, and you are also, going to be using, watching the recordings, they are all of a sudden going to feel stimulated that there are so many thinking like them. And perhaps one of the ideas will ring a bell for you. And let's really hope that does it. So this was the first challenge. The second challenge, and which I felt again was linking so perfectly with what we are doing today, is this is what I observed around me. Collaboration is a need in all sectors today. It's very important. Remember what the keynote speaker, said even yesterday. He said, in this situation now, do we sacrifice a 7-year-old or a 70-year-old? we can't. 7 is the next generation, and the 70 is going to be bringing in so much, a wealth of experience. And he also added that it is so important that you don't just work with technology experts, but actually work with people ranging, in various sectors, because that's where the reality is, that's where the problem is, that's where the challenge is, and you're using this tool in order to resolve that challenge. So collaboration is definitely a much required need in the sector today, but in reality, it is selective collaboration that is practiced. Now, this is something even Elena brought up in our discussion. She said, so true, because when we think of AI, the first thought, children are more inspired by people in technology. But I think these 7 to 8 days is going to open your eyes to the cross spectrum of collaboration that you really need to start working on. So learners, but what actually happens when we kind of narrow down and do selective collaboration? It becomes difficult to accept perspectives. And there's a threat, a growing gap between age groups, interests, hierarchy, disciplines today. Now, this is precisely the drift, and therefore, there are no real situations and solutions that we are going to come up with. It might not, whatever we work on might not really connect with the actual needs. So the question that I ask myself is our learning system nurturing collaboration among diverse groups of people without boundaries? And this particular platform seems to have just done that. And that's what I'm striving to do too, to stimulate learners across generations, competencies, locations, and move from this I concept to a we concept. Now, easier said than done. As I open up each challenge, I would like you to make small notes and records. You never know which challenge is something that's going to, you are going to resonate with. The third challenge that I started working on was this. Most of us, are seeking shortcuts, short-term results, quick fix solutions. Oh my God, I need to work on a project. Let me quickly arrive at it. But the situation that's emerging out of this habit is we are unable to claim ownership and demonstrate accountability. Now, we are unable to do it. We are not able to take complete accountability for all the tasks in hand. That's also because somewhere down the line, there are various other life skills that are missing. It's about collaborating, it's about trusting each other, it's about sharing responsibility, and it's about delegating work. And there are so many other aspects that come into play. But the thought process, it's so important that what is the question? It is really about, it's not just the result, it's not what you're going to innovate, but it is the effort that you put, every step that you put into this innovation, which is actually going to leave a long-lasting impact. So then the focus for me became, all right, we need to really work on helping everybody understand that we need to focus on our efforts for better results and not just the result. Because if you focus just on the result, then by hook or crook, you will definitely be there. And I don't think it's going to be a long-term solution at all. Now came yet another challenge. This is shocking because we actually saw there are a lot of websites, a lot of different, which actually help you write your resumes, right? So people started, a lot of youngsters began outsourcing resumes. They started outsourcing portfolios, they started outsourcing resumes, they started outsourcing their projects. And I would often wonder, why are they doing this? Are they doing this just because they don't know how to present themselves? Is it articulation? Is it just that there's no clarity in the way they are thinking? And is that all the support that they are really looking for? But interestingly, after a huge survey, we realized that it is not articulation alone, but many of the youngsters did not really, or even slightly older people did not really have real life stories to speak about. They hadn't really been in those situations. Uh, they hadn't been empathetic in a particular. The compassion in them had not really emerged, and hence there was this block. And since they did not have life experiences, they were actually going in for these solutions. But that came as a shock, because it does definitely have a very adverse effect on everybody, when you outsource. So it's beautiful. So we need to do even outsourcing with a lot of responsibility, right? It's with collaboration, understanding, focusing more on the efforts than only the results. And that is exactly what helps us. Now, it is, while I'm actually sharing with you about 7 or 8 challenges, and just see, your mind, you're going to reel under the impact, because that's what happened to me too. I mean, how many challenges do I take up, and how do I really start weaving programs? I need to understand, I need to, our previous speaker spoke about the data points and the authenticity of the data, how much data I need to collect, how do I go about collecting that data. So these are the specific challenges that come in our way, even as we look at the situations and identify challenges. So there is this absolute need and that craving, for people to support us with technology, with AI, because there is so much more, there are so many variables when you're working with minds. And that's where I come from now. So many are easily cooped up in their comfort zones, right? And our own local areas, flavors, culture. These are some things that really hold on to us. And the challenge that emerges because of this is it has made many nervous of accepting change and being enterprising, to explore new locations to work in, to explore and work on new ideas. But today, life has thrown us in a sphere where exploration and innovation has become the norm. What you are going to be working with and the kind of technology we are going to have in even a couple of years is something no school would have even dreamt of. Now, if that is the case, then as educational institutions, it's also very, very important to give all the youngsters an exposure across cultures, right? And bring and that's again, this little platform is doing that. And it's a fantastic initiative. And it's kind of, when I sit down and listen, yesterday I listened to a couple of speakers. One was from talking about problems in Kenya, and it was about women there, and somebody was talking about Cambodia, and every single thing was nerve-wracking, and it did stir us, right? So it simply means the minute we open our eyes, we stop this attitude of being a frog in the well and realize that there is so much more happening, and this is the way our world could go too. Or can we learn from certain mistakes and prevent our world from going there? So this is another challenge that I'm just very, very close to my heart. Now, while doing this, so here are about 7, 8 challenges that I'm grappling with, and they are moving me. And that's when, only after I sat and articulated these, after research, after working with mentors, after even working with people who will bring clarity to my words, etc., I was able to arrive at the mission and the vision. And today there is a driving force in me. I mean, it's not about what opportunity comes my way. I simply connect it with what I'm working on, and thus feel at home and have a sense of belongingness with whatever is happening around me. So the mission that I came up with after having worked on this, is enabling learners from diverse backgrounds to realize their capacity, nurture their ability, and capably align it to the needs of the others. Easier said than done, but even to arrive at that, it took its own sweet time. Vision. Equip learners with the necessary attitude, skills, and knowledge in their scope of interest, coupled with travel, to get connected with and resolve issues in the real world with implications in the future. Wow. And after that was done, everything started happening. There were projects that began to happen around me. There were the purpose of life. These were programs that started emerging out of this entire system. So it was so important to gain these kind of insights, to resonate with these challenges, to see, if there are opportunities in each challenge, and then start working on innovations, right? So that's when the tagline happened. I said, it's very important for all of us to go through a journey of from capacity to capability. Now, when I sat and wrote that, it's not just merely playing with words. Every one of us has a spark. The more youngsters I get connected to, I simply bask in the spark that they have, the effervescence of the sheer energy that they have, and the spark that they carry. Every one of us has a spark. Let's assume that you have a spark and you have the capacity to be a chef. Obviously, our next step is to work on your ability, right? You start sharpening your skills, your knowledge and your skills, and you start working with mentors in all the areas, and you keep sharpening your skill, and suddenly you become a very able person. You're able to cook any kind of dish, any kind. But when is it that you will actually be called capable? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. You have the spark, you have the ability, you've nurtured all your talents, but when is it that you will be called capable? Well, simple. When will you be called a capable chef? And who is to call you that? Obviously, the person on the receiving end, the client, right? So let's say you're cooking for somebody, you're cooking for someone with diabetes, you're cooking for someone who is on a diet, you're cooking for a sportsman, and you're taking care of all the needs and the requirements of that person, and then doling out a dish. That's when you get the aha moment and the aha moment, and that's when. So capability is about connecting with the needs. So even our previous speaker was talking about, if you have to connect with needs, then it's very, very important to go and meet these people who are needy, right? So all of us who actually touch base with you come across as needy. We're all working on various aspects, and there is a long way to go. There are many variables. There is a scalability and a proportion we are talking about, and we need solutions, right? So unless we connect with this need, we will never become capable, right? So in order to do that, it was very, very important to keep staying connected with these kind of people, and even to identify what is that one aspect that is moving me. Coming back to what I said at the very beginning, something that gives me the pain, something that makes me feel compassionate, and something that stirs me into action, right? So that's the journey. It's a journey from capacity to capability for all of us. So in order to move to that third step, it is so important to get aligned with needs. And I think that has to be a primary focus when we meet in portals of this nature. Having said that, so the first bet was inspiration. It's pain that inspires. And insights, which is looking deeper. And I just use a simple tool for you called the SCQA, which could kind of help you, assist you. There are so many of that kind, but just becoming aware of that there are such tools that actually help us dwell deeper and analyze and help us look deep into a particular problem really assists in bringing clarity. Now, it's not enough if we just stay there. It's so important now to innovate. So the needs to get connected now, and innovation happens. So when I connected with these 8 challenges, with these 8 situations, and arrived at the challenges and asked myself the questions, that's when innovation started happening. So today we have programs like Learn How to Learn. I looked at hobbies and said, wow, this is something that really adds life to a person, and a person does it very willingly. There are attitude, skill, and knowledge that really gets enhanced through these hobbies. But unfortunately, many of us drop our hobbies when we need to pursue higher education. It happens a lot in across dimensions. Well, how do we stay on with our hobbies? How do we even become aware as to what this hobby is actually doing for us, so that we hold on to our hobby, we work on something till a day when we can even learn through our hobby? So here was this young student who was very good at debating, and he simply enjoyed that. He was another student who was very good at quizzing, and they had to learn aspects on critical thinking and creative thinking and other things. So all that we had to do is use that tool of quizzing and debating in order to help them understand that way better. And they did it very quickly. So this is one concept, and this is one idea that came across, and this is something that we really need to work on. And this has to be made so much more scalable. We need human resource, we need people to even dissect the entire thing and show and bring it to everybody's awareness as to how the person is growing, even when he seems to be just having fun. And he seems to be, working on what he calls his hobby. Next is, there was yet another thing that happened. So I was talking about collaboration, right, across spectrums. And I realized that there is so much wealth within the family. There are people who are much older, but they have different thought processes happening. And there is a culture in which they are brought up. And the younger generation is also moving towards a very different kind of culture. But while we are moving, it's so important not to drift apart. It's so important to take cognizance of the fact that there is a wealth in the older generation and there is a spark in the younger generation. So when we actually work in tandem, we need to revel in that spirit and say, wow, when the 3 generations actually get connected, something magical happens. So that's when I designed another program called the 3 Generation Connect. So there were lots of games and lots of ideas that came up where we conducted sessions. We were looking for various opportunities where people are coming together. And we also realized that at social events and other places that they are in separate pockets. Remember, I told you, everybody wants collaboration, but it is selective collaboration that happens. So how do we actually bring them together? So we tried into common aspects and common topics like festivals, etc., and then weaved our knowledge and the attitude and the skill around these elements and brought them together. So again, this is just a very small endeavor. And I know there is a dearth. Artificial intelligence can bring everybody on the same. Today, if you look at this aspect, I have a lot of friends who are going to be logging in. They're just going to be watching this entire thing, and they are from different age groups. And they said, hey guys, we want to show the world, it's not just the youngsters who are AI, we are also sensitized to technology. And when I heard that line, I was touched. I said, oh yes, definitely do that, because they are there giving you the support and they are there wanting to reach out to you. to also tell you that what are the experiences they've had and what are the things that they never could work on, and they need the youth, the power of the young minds in order to actually take them forward. So that's when yet another program happened. It's called Roots to Roots, and habits for healthy habits. So I began to take nudges from ancient symbols and ancient symbolism, looked at the ancient Vedic wisdom, and I looked at the relevance of it today and said, and I see that the youngsters are more after science. So I looked at how scientific many of those aspects actually are, and started weaving games and conversations along these lines. And trust me, I have a lot of followers for that. And I have a diverse group of people actually talking. In fact, if I even got this platform, it was because of that. It's as interesting as that. So Elena wanted me to share with you a couple of the learnings from that, and let us just see, what you are able to make of that, and also see if this small sample triggers certain ideas and say, hey, I could actually do this. I could actually come up with this kind of a solution using AI, which can really enhance perspectives. It can make people think from different angles. So here is a little nudge for you. Okay, so the question is, here is this very ancient muse. Now I'm bringing in India, I'm bringing the culture from there. There are a plethora of gods there, and all the gods have different faces. They have different animals depicted as gods, different birds depicted as gods, and one always wonders, why are they being put on a pedestal? But I realized that, it simply was that people then were so close to nature. They understood nature so very well, and they put those qualities, they observed those qualities and said, oh my God, we need to be inspired even by nature. We need to be inspired not just by people around us and how they think, but it is about animals and how they function, and plants and how they function. And when we actually start looking deeper, we might actually come up with a lot of solutions for ourselves. And that's what they did. So so here is this God. He's called the God of knowledge, and he has the head of a horse. Now the question is, why should the God of knowledge have the head of a horse? So here's a question for you. What do you know about a horse? Okay, it keeps galloping. Oh yes, it for sure does. Anything else? Does it lie down and sleep? Hardly. It takes power naps. It doesn't lie down to sleep. It stands and rests. Very rarely does it actually come down and lie down. Anything else? It keeps running, for sure. But why does it do that? Because it's its nature to. Now let's do a small comparison. Have you heard of a cheetah? Have you seen a cheetah in action? What's the first word that comes to your mind when you think of a cheetah? It's speed. It runs too. When you think of a horse, you think of running and speed. When you think of a cheetah, you think of running and speed. But what's the difference? A cheetah runs after prey. A horse keeps running because it's nature to run. So it's a spurt of energy that happens in a cheetah. It goes chasing something, and once it gets its prey, and has a prey, it just goes and hangs from the branches. And after it's raced and caught on, many a time you find it breathing with its tongue out. It's gasping for breath. It's breathing hard. But the horse, have you actually observed how the horse breathes? Have you even observed it? Well, it simply flares its nostrils. That's about it. And now that set the balls in motion for us. we started studying the scriptures, the little hymns, on the name of this God, and suddenly noticed that this is exactly what the ancients here were trying to say. They said, well, you need to work like a horse, especially when you're pursuing knowledge and when you want to really learn something and work on something, you need to work like a horse. What do we mean by that? We mustn't have a prey mindset. We must learn because it's our nature to learn. Second, we need to breathe easy while we are learning, because if we do gasp for breath, we cannot even speak what we are intending to speak. So it's so important to align your breath. The better the oxygen supply for the brain, the better is your assimilation, right? And rest. You cannot just take huge chunks of knowledge and then sleep on it. You will have to be at it, and you'll have to work on it consistently, and you'll have to imbibe that and ensure that you're not panting at the end of it all. Powerful, right? So now this magic began happening when we connected nature and connected ancient science, symbolism, great memories, connected with all cultures, multifarious cultures. There's a fantastic response that comes right from a 6-year-old to an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old. Everybody responds with whatever little they know, whatever little they do. So my question to you is, there are a lot of people out there who are dwelling deeper into the issues. They are getting inspired, certain things hurt them. They're getting inspired, and that pain and that compassion makes them dig a little deeper, and then they begin to innovate. So it's now the responsibility of the younger generation to actually tap into this, which already exists. People who've already walked the path, who've already identified many, many challenges. We need to just be there, be with them, and work in tandem and come up with solutions that can actually expedite the process. It can actually increase this and enhance the very speed of this work. This is one other area that we are working on. And I thought this time when I was talking to Elena also, I said, let me just take them through a very real journey of a struggling entrepreneur who has many challenges and working on a lot of them, wishing to and wanting to collaborate with different people and work in different areas and ensure that these ideas take shape and scale up, because they are not ideas that can just be dumped. These are ideas that are born out of care, out of compassion. So on that note, I would like to take a few questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Jayashree. I'm just looking to see whether there are any questions. That was such a fascinating presentation, and I'm so happy you have touched upon some of the stuff that we don't usually discuss in our programs, but they are so essential and so important and really binds everything. So there are no questions at the moment. And Jayashree, my son keeps coming in every time you are live.
I think he finds me approachable.
He definitely does. So he has been whispering to me. So yes, it's one of those.
How old is your son? Because I can then perhaps how much time do we still have? So we can.
Yes, we will be wrapping up soon because we have teenagers who are who need to get back to their teams. But I am really pleased that you've joined us, and I know we'll have a follow-up conversation. And I'm looking to see whether there are any questions. I'm not seeing any just yet. So if you are watching this stream, please let me know if you have any questions, because Jayashri is here to respond. So there is one I would like to take, and this is on the importance of being present and meditation. How important is it, and what advice would you offer young people, because they are at the moment incredibly stressed?
Very true.
And it will probably become a little bit more stressful towards the end of the accelerator. And so perhaps you could offer us some advice on how do we create that balance, because I can see a lot of teenagers are online a lot during this program. You know, sometimes I log in at 11 just to see whether anyone needs help from our teams based in America, and I can see still teams based in the UK at a very late hour still working on their products. Something I don't encourage them to do, because I really do think there needs to be a really good balance. What advice would you offer to them?
Right. So I work with a lot of youngsters, and this is precisely what's happening across the globe, because they want to learn so much, and they're connecting with different platforms. So they're working, the Indians working on America time and Americans working on India time. And so the first thing that I always ask the youngsters to become aware of, like today I just brought up the horse, is to become aware of the nature of your own body. Right? Start doing a little bit of research on how your brain works and how your body works. And for example, it is said that different organs in our body perform optimally at different times. Right? So let's say our lungs perform optimally in the morning. So it's about 4 to 6 in the morning, that's when your lungs perform optimally. And similarly at night, 10 to 12 in the night, that's when your liver performs optimally. And when anything is performing at its optimum level, that's when you need to exercise it, right? Mm-hmm. So it simply means that most of our exercises and our warming up and everything should happen pretty early in the morning. And while the liver functions when the body is flat on the ground, which means you need to be lying down flat from 10 to 12 in the night. Now so it's just about becoming aware of how your body is functioning and the kind of rest you're giving it. That's one very important aspect. The second aspect is that just look deep. Whenever you are emotional and whenever you're watching a movie, I'm sure you have come across certain disturbances in your body, right? You get goose pimples, you start breathing fast, lots of other changes that happen. But one thing that just goes unnoticed by all of us is the breath. So it is the breath that we take for granted. In fact, with every change in emotion, there's a change in our breath. So if we are able to reverse it, if we work on our breath, we can work on our emotion. That's the magic pill. So simply learning up a dozen breathing techniques and to just keep doing it intermittently while you're working, even a simple gesture. Sometimes your body automatically reacts, it's trying to realign itself, but we are so unaware of it. For instance, if your eyes are really strained and they're burning, all that you need to do is pull your ears and keep working on your ears. And there is phenomenal work that has been done in this field, and you will actually experience that your eyes clear up and you're feeling less strained. So these are the little magic tips you need to pick up and keep working on it. And the more you experience it, there are universities that are working on breathing techniques and meditation to a very, very big level. But even before you doubt it and go into, trying and find out how authentic it is, simply try out a few of the techniques and see how it actually starts helping you. And the research will definitely follow, and you will definitely get the answers. Just take it from experience first. I think that's the lesson we've all been learning, right? There are so many with such phenomenal experience. They've been speaking throughout the day, even yesterday. Just cash in on that experience and work in your style. And I think we'll resolve innumerable number of issues for the next generation to come.
Amazing, and that's fantastic. So can you teach us, or can you give us some resources in terms of where could they go and learn how to breathe, just to alleviate the stress, the pressure, and be calmer and grounded?
Okay. So from my personal experience, I will say there are a lot of people who are doing absolutely genuine work, and Art of Living is one such thing where you have the Sudarshan Kriya. Even the Yale University has taken it up in a very, very large level, and there's tremendous research that's happening in that field. I think just going in for the breathing techniques, that are being taught there is making so I've been a practitioner for over 17 years now, and I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, and 4 to 6 I work only on myself, because after 6 the world needs me for various things. I get disturbed, right? Your kid comes to you, your grandkid comes to you, and you have other tasks to do. So how did I even get into that habit is only because I cared a lot. So it's this is how I feel it works. If we genuinely are pained by certain things that are happening, and if we really care to bring about change, the first person you'll care about is yourself.
Amazing. No, I love that. Fantastic. Now, I've always wanted to marry our sort of program focused on technology, but at the same time, really touch upon self-development and stuff we can do to improve ourselves. And I think the big changes happen when we really start from changing ourselves. So I'm really grateful, Jayashree, you've joined us today.
I really loved what the previous speaker said, don't take it too hard on yourself. You are going to have a lot of people who are going to question the authenticity of your work, but just go on, because you know that it is bringing about a change, and that is what matters most.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jayashree. We will speak again soon. And everyone, well done for listening to all the 3 talks. I know Jayashree's talk was a little bit longer than the others, but I think she had so many very important points for you to relay and to take away. And so I just wanted to leave you with something that hopefully will give you some tips, some pointers, because this is not a very easy, it's not going to be very easy 2 weeks. It's only day 2 today. There is a lot for you to achieve. You really do need to find that balance in your life. And meditation is something I'm really passionate about. And I would really love you to try meditating in the mornings or in the evenings, just to keep sort of grounded and really know what it is that you're doing, because it will help you focus as well. And Jayashree is happy to share, various tips with us if needs be. So we will have her again if we need her more of her advice and tips. So thank you, and well done for joining us today. And tomorrow we have 2 exciting speakers joining us again, and this will be happening every evening at 5 o'clock. So Jayashree, thank you for joining us. Thank you, and enjoy your time with your granddaughter. I know you are in Seattle enjoying your time, so this is such precious time, and you've dedicated an hour to us. Thank you, Jayashree.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock here on YouTube.